Welcome to the Killer Innovation Show, the longest continuously produced podcast in history. Each week, Phil McKinney brings you the insights and strategies to amplify your creativity and innovation skills. Here's your host, Phil McKinney.
Laws exist to keep some form of order or control. The traffic laws that we follow to avoid chaos as we drive around. There are a variety of laws that are out there. Scientific laws are ones that we can test and prove. We can reconfirm that the law still applies. An example would be, the law of gravity. It always exists. The law is always the same. There's also other kinds of laws that we use in the context of business terms. In that case, those laws are observed and validated over extended periods of time. We can test them, we can predict from them, and we can see if those predictions are true. Perfect example of these kinds of laws would be Moore's Law, which says that the number of transistors on semiconductors will double about every 18 to 24 months. That law has been in place since the 60s, and it gets validated all the time. Now, there are some things that people think are laws, but they're really rules of thumb. Now, a rule of thumb is really, it's an anecdote, and it's based on personal experience or some lore that's been passed down over time. Probably the most prevalent of these kinds of rules of thumbs is the 80-20 rule, which says that 20% of your actions generate 80% of the results. 20% of your customers generate 80% of the revenue. 20% of your trouble tickets generate 80% of your truck rolls. The 80-20 rule. What's interesting, though, is that rule has been proven not to be really that valid. The rules of thumbs are good to identify if there's a problem. It's an early test to see if there's something that you can narrow down to find a problem that you can focus in on. But a rule of thumb is not a law. Now, we're going to talk about the laws of innovation. The laws of innovation that we are going to talk about have been observed and validated for over 30 years. They're not a rule of thumb. These are the proven and tested set of the laws of innovation. And I'm going to walk through these relatively quickly just to give you a quick introduction and a quick overview. I'm talking specifically about the 7 laws of innovation. So law number 1 is the law of leadership. Leadership is critical. Leaders prioritize innovation and show it through their actions. Leaders are not just executive leadership, the CEO, or the owners of a business. Leaders include everybody from if you lead a team or an organization, or if you're a project manager, you don't have people reporting to you, but you've been put in charge of a project and you're delivering that project. The law of leadership applies to you. And what this basically means is you need to walk the talk. If innovation is important to you and is important to your organization, you just can't give it lip service. You have to live it. You have to walk it. You have to demonstrate it. The team will follow you based on what you model to your organization. Law number 2 is the law of culture. An organization's culture eats strategy for lunch. A lot of organizations focus on their strategy and they're trying to make that perfect strategy to achieve success. But culture is foundational. What do I mean by foundational? It lays the bedrock. It lays the foundation that everything else in the organization gets built upon. If you do not have a well-defined culture, that foundation is weak. The ability to drive a program of innovation inside any organization and team is going to fail. Now, specifically around a culture of innovation, there's certain elements that you need to have in that culture, such as, the willingness to take risk, not to penalize people if they take a risk, try something, and it doesn't work out and it fails. That's called learning. We should never look at failure as something negative. It's actually something positive. We tried. We did something. It didn't work out. That's okay. We will try and experiment on the next thing. That gets built into an organization's culture. If that culture is not strong, people will not take risks. And without risks, you have no innovation. So, the law of culture, absolutely critical. And number 3, the law of resources. Innovation requires committed and consistent resourcing. And what do I mean by resourcing? It's people, it's time, and it's money. You need all 3. Most organizations do not dedicate or allocate resources to innovation. It's kind of stolen time. Squeeze a couple of hours in here, a couple of hours in there, and you try to make it work out. Organizations that want to achieve innovation success have to have a consistent set of resourcing, committed. How many organizations have a budget line item where it's uncommitted dollars? Dollars that are given away to teams and organizations. It sits in a pool and people can throw in new ideas. Most organizations do not have that. And that challenge is when new ideas come up. If a new idea comes up, where do you get the people? Where do you get the money? Where do you find the time in everybody's calendar? That becomes the big challenge. You have to run around, pass the hat, pass the cup, beg for dollars, and then wait to the next budget cycle. In this case of the law of resources, it goes beyond just that this calendar year or this budget year, you dedicate resources. But what about every budget cycle? Do you have to re-justify every project? Do you have to go through and re-ask for money in order to keep your project going? Or does this law of resources enable you to have committed resources for extended periods of time, 2, 3 years in some cases, depending on how big and how complex the project is? This law of resources says not only do we have resources we can allocate to a project, but that when we commit to them, we commit to them. They're not tied to this arbitrary calendar of budget cycles. It is defined by what is appropriate for the project at hand. So law of resources is absolutely critical because if you don't have people, time, and money, the odds of you having innovation success shrinks to zero really, really quickly. Number 4 is the law of patience. Innovation takes time, more time than expected. Get used to it. It's just what happens. These things take time. They are hard to do, and they're hard to predict. You don't know what's going to happen when. You don't know what the effort's going to look like, what the challenges you're going to run into, the speed bumps, the unknowns that you're going to encounter. Leadership that gets locked into, we're going to innovate at 3 o'clock on Friday, are going to be sorely disappointed. Or we're going to launch a new product when you don't have it already in development. Or we're going to generate a breakthrough idea this year where you don't have a pipeline. You have to have patience. You have to get enough things moving in your innovation pipeline, and you have to have patience. You have to be willing to see failure happen, or experiments not work out, or trials that didn't generate the results that you were expecting. Patience, by far, is one of the hardest laws for executive leaders to get their heads around. Most executive leaders like predictability. They live by the quarter. They want to see those results. Most executive leaders struggle with this law. And that is one of the hindrances for organizations to achieve innovation success. Executives all the way through the entire leadership organization and down even to the individual has to have patience. A lot of organizations, even the line staff, the people, individual contributors, get frustrated because they're not seeing progress fast enough. It's okay. It takes time. We have to get used to the fact that no matter what we plan, odds are it's going to take longer than we expected. Number 5, the law of process. Establish and continuously innovate a robust innovation process. Key point here is one is to establish, build an innovation process, such as using the FIRE framework, focus, ideation, ranking, execution, using that as a framework as your process. But not only that, continuously innovate, improve it. Don't think it's static. There's loads of consultants out there that will come to you and say, here's the 10 magic steps of innovation. Follow these steps and magic occurs and you will achieve innovation success. Reality is, it's bogus. It is absolute bogus. Every team, every organization is different. The project is different. The nomenclature and language is different. The processes behind the scenes are different for every organization. So if you take an innovation process, wherever you find it, wherever you think it's the appropriate one for your activity, be willing to adapt it, change it, tweak it, do it in a way that works for your project. Experiment, see what works. You might uncover an entirely new activity in the process that works out and absolutely crushes it. So the law of process, it's important to have a process. You need to establish it. Your team needs to be trained on it. They need to know how to use it and operate on it. And you need to not stand still. You need to continuously innovate. How do you improve that innovation process? What experiment could you do? Try something a little different on how you define the target area. Maybe you change a little bit about how you do your brainstorming or your ideation activities. Try a new way to rank your ideas, to find the best ideas out of the hundreds of ideas that you're going to generate. And then execution. Experiment with different ways to execute. Be willing to exercise it. A law of process doesn't mean it's locked in stone, carved in titanium. You need to be flexible, you need to establish it, and you need to continuously innovate. Number 6, the law of the BHAG. Define a target and clear finish line for your project. What do I mean by BHAG? Bold, hairy, audacious goal. A BHAG is that finish line. Clearly define a compelling target and a clear finish line because it will catalyze the team. The team will have a clear goal that they are going to try to achieve. BHAGs are unbelievable motivators. When you look and you dissect teams that had high innovation impact, they had a BHAG. They may not have called it that. They may not have even consciously created it. It may have just been a mission that all of them signed up for, and they achieved unbelievable success. The most prevalent BHAG, the one I talk about the most often, is the BHAG that President Kennedy put before the citizens of the United States, and really the citizens of the world, around putting a man on the moon. And what was that BHAG? President Kennedy, in a speech to Congress, said, before the end of the decade, we will put a man on the moon and return him safely. Wow. That is a BHAG. That is a bold, hairy, audacious goal. We had no clue how to do it. We had not worked out all the engineering. But what did he do? He defined the goal, put a man on the moon. He defined a timeline before the end of the decade. And he defined success was bring them home safely. So he had all three components of a strong BHAG. BHAGs are incredibly powerful around an innovation program, innovation success. Organizations may have multiple BHAGs, depending on what they're trying to achieve. But having that BHAG where everybody in the team understands it, can communicate it, can share it, they can internalize it, and they sign up for the mission. The BHAG is defining your innovation mission. What is that BHAG that's going to motivate and attract people to want to be on this project in order to deliver that mission? And number 7, the law of execution. The law of execution says that ideas without execution are a hobby. And I don't know about you, but I'm not in the hobby business. Putting ideas into notebooks and sticking them on a shelf, value, zero. Right? How do we deliver? Ideas don't become innovations without execution, without action. Action is required. You need to do something, translating that idea into something tangible, something real, a mobile app, a piece of hardware, a new process, a new advertising campaign, whatever it might be. The law of execution is where rubber meets the road. Because without it, all the other activities and the innovation efforts is for naught. Value gets created when ideas are executed, when ideas are translated into innovations that can have huge impact, and in some cases, can even change the world. So the law of execution is where the rubber meets the road. Without it, everything else is for naught. It's a waste of effort. So focus on that ability to execute. Drive strategies to execute. Take your best ideas and execute them.
Podcasting nonstop since 2005, this has been the Killer Innovation Show on the Innovators Network.